So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining this lunchtime webinar. I am Anne-Louise Dupin and I am part of Salto Green. We are the resource center for the Green Priority in the Erasmus Plus and ESC programs. And we often have those kind of webinars to share some good practices, some resources, connect actors who are doing some things around the Green Priority in the field of education in Europe. And today our guests are Margherita Pascani and Filippa Menzel, and they're coming from the CANIE network, who is working internationally to green the field of education and specifically, obviously, focus on green mobilities and how we can teach and learn in maybe a more sustainable way. So I'm going to give them the floor to share with us resources, positive things that the network is doing. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Anna-Louise, for inviting us. We're very, very happy and excited to be here today with you all. It's a great opportunity to start a collaboration and just join forces, because we recognize that working in the sustainability space can be very lonely and can feel lonely. And so I think this space is really important, and CANIE is important in the same way. I mean, as you're gathering people to talk about the same topic, I think it's important for CANIE it's the same thing. So we have kind of the same mission to some extent of making people feel part of a community. Because if we want systemic change, we need to be together. And so we really appreciate this opportunity, because everybody was working in a sustainability space and a climate action space, because we talk primarily about climate action. Sustainability is a very broad term, so we want to really focus on climate action. It is important that we know where partners in the space are, and so it's an honor and a privilege to be online with you all today. So thanks for the invite. My name is Margherita Pasquini. I am the CANIE Europe chapter president, at least until the summer. Then we'll see what happens. We're having elections soon. And I am with Filippa Menzel. Filippa, do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi everybody. I'm Filippa Menzel and I am CANIE Europe Secretary based in Germany in Munich.
So we're going to talk a little bit about CANIE, who we are, what we do, our main initiatives, and also in the end, we would like to share, just do a quick exercise together so that we can actually walk away from the session with something either to think about or to work on, okay? So CANIE stands for Climate Action Network for International Educators, and it's an international network run by volunteers. Was funded in 2019, and we had the first event in 2020. It's organized in 3 different chapters: Americas, Europe, and Oceania. I'm very happy and also proud to say that the European chapter is the most active and with the highest number of members. And so overall, we have 900 members, practitioners from over 700 institutions. And then we're going to be talking about the CANIE course in a little bit. The reason why CANIE came to be is because at some point we realized that there wasn't any space for to discuss climate action in the field of international education, even though our role as educators and also as an industry certainly has an important impact in terms of an environmental impact that cannot be denied. And so this is how CANIE came to be, with Elsa Lemon, who was the founder, and a group of intrepid activists at the very beginning. Because now it's I feel it's kind of easier 5 years later to talk about climate action and sustainability in the field. But when we started, there was little to zero conversation about this topic. So it was really important that this space was created. Now, over the past 5 years, there were some acknowledgements and awards that CANIE won as an organization, and for also the projects we've designed and created. So one was the President Award in 2020, 2 Pioneer last in 2021 finalists, and then last year we won 2 awards as a member organization and 1 for Travel with CANIE, which is another initiative we'll be talking about it. And we are also finalists for the Go Abroad Innovation Award this year in 2025. So we'll know the results in a few weeks. So in this 5 years, externally we grew a lot, and so we're trying always to make new meaningful connections. Now, what we focus primarily on, I think we can move on to the next slide. Yeah, what we focus primarily on is advocacy, education and connection, and sustainability. So we really want to, advocacy is like the main thing we do. So we want to advocate for a transition to a higher education industry that takes into account the impact, as mentioned, that what we do and how we operate. So we do the impact that what we do has and how we operate. And then obviously education and connection. I mean, what we do best is like being universities, right? In higher education institutions is educating. And also we are a field of networking, connecting. And so that is also very, very important. But this implies emissions in most cases because we want to get together in person in most cases. And so, and then we also want to focus on operational sustainability. We want what we talk about also to be embedded in how we act and how we operate. So, Philippa, onto you.
Thanks, Margarita. Yes, so hi everyone again. So I'm Philippa, Secretary of the Europe chapter, and I'm just going to give you some information about probably the most visible activities that CANIE has, or projects that CANIE has been working on so far. And those of you who have heard of us, it's probably through some of these activities on this slide. Margarita has also already mentioned the Travel with CANIE campaign that we have run 3 times now already and are planning again for 2025. This is something that Margarita and a few other colleagues started 3 years ago when they realized that there was need and scope for collective action around travel to EAIE, which is a conference that I'm sure many of you know is very highly attended by people in our sector, and there was scope to encourage some behavioral change around the way that people are traveling to this particular conference, and of course to all conferences and all academic and professional travel that's going on in our field, which, as you know, is a lot. And so it's been a very symbolic action where we encouraged conference goers to travel sustainably to the conference. It started out relatively small and it's gained wings over the past few years. Last year was very successful. We more than doubled our target, over 71 tons of CO2 saved, encouraging participants to travel by train or by bus to the conference. And we collaborate also with EAIE directly on this campaign, and we will be again in 2025. Those of you who have heard of CANIE also, it's probably or might be through one of our CANIE-led conference sessions. When you see sustainability or climate action or green themes on the conference program, it's very likely that one of the presenters is connected in some way with CANIE, if not very actively involved with our network. We are very present at those conferences. Margarita will be at NAFSA, there'll be a presence at EAIE, and then the other conferences that you can see on the screen. And then the CANIE Accord is our other big flagship project action tool that we have developed as a network. We're going to tell you a lot more about it, but it's been very quickly, very successful. It's a shared commitment among the sector that either universities or any type of organization can sign. And we have for now over 100 signatories, and it's growing. So we're going to tell you a lot more about the Accord and how it works. We've already mentioned it, but we have 3 chapters. CANIE realized very quickly that we needed to divide and conquer to maximize our impact. And so there's Americas, Europe, and Oceania. What I think is very interesting for the audience today, you're all based in Europe, but very often I think in these spaces we're kind of in the Erasmus conversation, in the Erasmus bubble, or the European projects bubble, the European Union bubble. And what I very much appreciate personally as somebody who works for a German institution in the CANIE Europe network is that it really is Europe-wide and not just EU-wide. So we have a lot of participants also from the UK who are now sometimes excluded from the Erasmus conversations, from Switzerland, etc. So it's a really great group, and we're going to tell you some more about what we do as a chapter. So, as Margarita mentioned, she's our president. We have Daniel Ponce-Taylor, who is our vice president, and me as secretary, as we said, at least until the summer when we will be holding elections. We're around 400 members now, so a growing and largely represented chapter. You can join. CANIE is a network of individuals. So if you're interested in engaging with us, it's a very simple membership process. You just sign up on the website. You'll receive emails about upcoming monthly meetings, events that we organize as a chapter, and then also just any global CANIE updates as well. And we encourage you to have a look on our Padlet, where some of our more active members have included a little bio of the things that they're working on and what they're doing. So you can see we're really a diverse and very active group of people advocating for climate action in our sector. But we encourage you to join, and there's the QR code on the screen there. So we meet, the main thing that we do in the Europe chapter is that we meet once a month. We have a guest speaker every month talking about a topic related to climate action or environmental sustainability in international higher education. So it might be climate literacy, it might be climate action or sustainability practices within mobility programs. It's really a variety of speakers that we have every month. And then it's also a space where you are encouraged to get involved and to engage with us. And we work ad hoc on different projects, and any member actually can suggest a project that they think would be of use or benefit to the European context. So for example, that's how the Travel with CANIE initiative started. That was just an idea that came up amongst our members. And so we have an onboarding process as well for anyone who joins. They can join. You can see on the screen one of our onboarding calls there that we have once a month as well for new members who, so be our onboarding coordinator. We'll meet with you and learn a little bit more about what you're interested in, and then maybe connect you with other people within the chapter who are working on similar things. And there's, you can get, as Margarita's already mentioned, we're a network entirely run by volunteers. So we're always looking for people to help out, be it something very small. I started out just helping out with a few emails, and you can then grow your involvement with the chapter if and as you become inspired by our very active members and all of the things that we're working on. So don't hesitate to join us, and then once you have joined one of our onboarding calls. Okay, we're going to dive a little bit deeper into the CANIE Accord, as I mentioned, and I'm going to hand back over to Margarita.
Thanks, Felipa. So in the meantime, I shared the link in the chat to how to join CANIE. I'm sorry for the QR code not working. So the link is there, and also our LinkedIn profile is there. It's pretty active. We generally post 2 or 3 times a week. So in case you don't feel like becoming a member already, like yet, but you still want to follow what we do, the LinkedIn page is pretty active. So now we're going to be talking about the CANIE Accord, which is like has been kind of the main project we've been working on. So what is the CANIE Accord? I'm going to share the link in the chat in a second as well, so that you can find it. You can look at it later in case your codes don't work. So we call it our roadmap to sustainability for an institution. So it's a list of 70 items that we put together for universities to look at and see what they are already doing, what they can do in a short, like in the midterm, and maybe in an aspirational way, long term. So it was born not just out of like a group of CANIE members' minds, but in 2020 we invited, what was that, 2020, 2021? It was the Glasgow, when it was the Glasgow, what was that? Like, I think it was, like November 2021. Sorry, it was really there. I was trying to remember.
It's on the slide.
So, we invited the leaders, like a group of leaders, almost 60 people, leaders in the higher education space, not just in Europe, obviously, from around the world. So NAFSA was involved, the Forum was involved, APAE was involved, EA was involved, and other, big names or people who can make the difference. And we just sat together, closed doors, and we discussed what bold actions we as a sector could do to make, to support the transition, because we all recognize that it was time to act and time to do something. And so after that, what all the ideas we got out of that conversation and that working space, we put them together in a document that was called the Glasgow Protocol that became, like, weeks later, what is currently known as the CANIE Accord. So why is the CANIE Accord useful? No matter what you want to sign it or not, it is a nice way to assess where your institution is in the process of, becoming more aware of what sustainability means at your institution. And it's very easy to look at the Accord. We're going to do a quick exercise at the end so you can familiarize yourself with the CANIE Accord. Because sometimes what we see as an obstacle, like even people really into climate action and sustainability, they don't know where to start because it's a big thing, right, to tackle. So where do I start? That's a big question we all have, right? And so the CANIE Accord kind of responds to that need. And it's like, okay, this is what you could be doing. And it's divided in basic, better, and best. And it's divided also into different topics and subtopics. So you can decide where you want to start. To become a signatory, you only need 5 items to commit to, which is really like a small number of items. Now, I'm not saying this because I want to encourage greenwashing, because honestly, I don't want our universities to be just like, oh, I signed a CANIE Accord, I'm good now. No, this has to be like a starting point that ideally needs to be reviewed every year. And as you, like, institutions would need to assess what they're doing, what they can be doing, and potentially if they're not meeting what they declared they would do, what they pledged to, then they could kind of renegotiate and re-sign, re-update the CANIE Accord based on what they can actually do. Because sometimes you're like, oh, I can do this. And then a year later, you realize that actually it wasn't so easy. Or maybe there was something else that you thought it would be difficult, and actually it's pretty easy. So it's an ongoing process. Okay, so that's I think, Philippa, we can see the presentation, but not like full screen for some reason. I mean, it's not a big deal anyway, but just saying. And so one thing that all institutions need to agree on are the guiding principles. So kind of initial statements on, like, about what the university is committed to, and it's kind of a very like broad declaration. Yes, this is the 2 resources I was mentioning, the CANIE COP26 and the Glasgow paper that came out, and then there was protocol, and then it became the Accord. So it's kind of a bit of a history there. So I think we can move on to the next slide. Yeah. So these are the CANIE Accord principles. Take immediate action, because we all recognize and acknowledge that it's urgent, and so we have to act now. Collaborate, innovate, and educate. As we said already, collaboration is key in this space. So we need, to support each other and also like find creative ways to like move forward with this green transition. And innovate and educate is kind of, I guess, part of like every institution's mission. So I don't think I need to explain it much. And then this is also very important. Develop climate solutions that advance social justice and also climate justice, because a lot of we talk a lot about climate justice. And if you've never heard the term before, this is not the right time to talk about it like in depth. But basically, if we had to kind of summarize it as those who pollute the most and contribute the most to the climate change are the ones that actually pay the least, and so are not paying enough consequences. So, and this is called climate justice or injustice. Now, there are like plenty of like papers to talk about it, and I really encourage you to check the resources we have available. We also have a working group on climate justice, and we have some people really like dedicating their time, and I don't want to say their life, but almost, to climate justice. So I really encourage you to like check what's available. And if you don't find anything, you can reach out to us. I'm super happy to share a lot of resources that are extremely interesting. This is I think it's grounded in what we do. Like climate justice is grounded in what we do and what we have to take into account. So now, I know we have limited time, so I don't want to spend too much time on this, but we're just gonna go through it very quickly. So the first part is, provide context and then include action in different categories, the categories I was referring to, and then 7 items or actions in total that you can choose from. And then, yes, I think we can go quickly here because I really would like for everybody to have access to the kind of word later and just take a couple of minutes to go through it individually. So these are some of the signatories. The list is actually bigger because we receive new applications every week, so which is a good sign. And I hope at the end of the chat, maybe you want to look at we're going to be looking into that, and maybe you can take it back to your institution and maybe just consider signing the CANIE Accord. Last year, we got QS support in the CANIE Accord by including it as part of the evaluation in the rankings when it comes to sustainability. So if that is an argument that could win over your, board of directors or your CEO or the leadership team, this is something which is oftentimes the case. Well, then you can also say that it gives you more points in the rankings, in the QS rankings, if you sign the CANIE Accord. And am I taking your part, Philippa? I think this was your part.
Yeah, that's okay though. Yeah, do you want me to continue? I can.
Yes,
Maybe
please.
just on this slide, something that might be interesting for the people present today is that you can really sign this either as, I know that most of you attending today are from national agencies. You would be welcome to sign the CANIE Accord as a national agency. You can see that there are various types of organizations that have chosen to sign this document. It's really something that can be applicable to multiple different contexts, but of course also universities can too. So as green contact points, it's something that you can recommend to universities within your national context if they are coming to you and saying, we don't know where to start with our policy making, or we don't know, how, are there any resources that you have for policy making when it comes to sustainability? This is a kind of a tool that you could give them as well. So both of those things are possible. Yeah, where are our signatories based? All over the world, really. We have even more than are on this slide now. I think we're extending in Europe, and then there's even some signatories starting to crop up in Africa and Asia. So worldwide, really, and growing. I think also with the QS recognition, it's starting to gain momentum in quite a lot of different national contexts. Just quickly about the process of signing. It's a very simple process, as Margarita mentioned, not so that we can encourage people to just, greenwash and not carry out the things that they say they are going to, but just to make it easy for you to actually have the acknowledgement for maybe the things that you're already doing. And we're going to look at whether or not you are already doing some of the things that are in the document already. Probably you are. You could then right now go over to the CANIE website, have a look, and each member who wants to sign the accord can fill out the form and say we commit to the following items and commitments in the different sections. This will then, of course, be reviewed by our team. And you will then be listed as a signatory if everything's okay. You will be listed as a signatory on our website, and you will receive a draft at that before it's published, just to make sure that we're on the same page. And then that's it. Then you are listed as a signatory of the accord. So a very simple 3-step process. Once you are officially a signatory, you will receive a toolkit with some promotional materials that you can put on your website and email signatures on your social media, etc., and promote your commitments that you are taking and commit to take in the future. And of course, it's not on the slide, but it's also possible to contact us and then go back and say, actually, we've reviewed. As Margarita said, it's important to keep reviewing and seeing where you are and moving forward into some of the, if you were in the basic, moving into the better and the best, you can contact us and we'll reopen it so that you can add commitments. And we've had a few institutions do that already. And that's what's really beautiful about this accord, is that it your institution can develop with it. All right. And then we wanted to dive really quickly a little bit more into travel with CANIE. We've mentioned it briefly already, but I'll hand back over to Margarita to talk about that.
Thanks, Philippa. So travel with CANIE, yes, we mentioned it very quickly, and it's an initiative that aims at reducing the carbon emissions related to professional travel. Now, the reason why we want to focus on mobility is we all know, is because we encourage students' mobility, but we also are very mobile as professionals. And so being the adults in the room, we cannot just drop this on our students and say, oh, you know what, from now on, you need to reduce the emissions, because otherwise, what do we do on this planet? Fair, like fine, but also like, well, we also need to lead by examples, and also like we don't want to take away, that carbon budget that our students use to travel and make a very important and live an important transformative education experience, when we actually, of course, what we do is very significant, but we also want to understand what the impact is. So starting from the fact that we travel a lot and we don't necessarily, like, our field doesn't necessarily acknowledge the impact, we want to start by raising awareness, and talk about more about the fact that traveling has an impact. We want to encourage a like a shift in our behavior, and we want to take the lead on how we change that behavior. So as Filipa mentioned, we started a few years back just by saying, okay, we're going to go to Barcelona by train, and we reached out to EIE to tell them. And back then they were like, okay, fine, nice. And then they realized that it was a great initiative. And so over the years, we started partnering with them. And this year, we actually have access to their platform to manage, the interactions that will happen among green travelers. So now it's a very solid partnership. And the difference with the CANIE Accord is that the CANIE Accord needs to be, it's kind of an action that institutions need to take at an institutional level, whether it's the office or the whole university, while Travel with CANIE encourage individuals to get engaged with this community and to make a difference. So we want to empower people to make a difference by just acting differently. And so these are we did Barcelona, the Forum, Rotterdam, Toulouse, and NAFTA this year, and we're going to do Gothenburg 2025. And we don't want to spend much time because we also want to save some time for questions and maybe a conversation at the end. I just want to share this very quickly, because sometimes when we talk about low carbon, this is what we mean. The difference between flying and taking a train is significant. And yet, we keep, in most cases, flying a lot around. So there is an educational piece that is missing, and we tend to be reluctant. Being educators, we still tend to be reluctant to be educated. And so that's a big entry barrier. So we need to work with our colleagues and our institutions to make it like a central piece of what we do, educating our colleagues and educating our community on the impact. And we have a lot of webinars, seminars, resources and articles that we published to address this. So if you need any kind of backup material because you want to bring this to your, to the university you serve, or, to anybody else, we're happy to share more resources about it. Yeah. So yeah, we won some awards that we want to brag about and we were proud of, but let's, I think we can just move forward. Yes. Last, we are a volunteer-run organization. So if your institution can, if there's any chance you can sponsor any kind of activity, we absolutely welcome donations. With that said, maybe we can take one question that is online. We can stop sharing, I guess. And so, Berenice, on which criteria do you review the commitment of signatories? Do you want to take this question?
Sure, I can. Yes. So just to be clear, I mentioned that there would be a review process. It's not an extensive review process. We're not going to audit your institution. The Accord is a self-declaration that institutions can make, that they commit to the commitments that are mentioned in the document. What we do check, of course, is that you fulfill the criteria of having the 5 commitments necessary, so the bare minimum that you need to be classed as a signatory. Of course, we will check that. And if, for example, your institution was to come and say, we commit to everything, then we would perhaps be contacting you and making sure that you've understood the process. And very few institutions, or if any, I don't think we have any institutions who've committed to everything. But it's not. We're not an audit organization. We're not going to audit your institution. We're not going to review it extensively. It's, as I said, it's your institution that commits to having that published on the website, that you have made the commitment to these items, and it's your responsibility then to ensure that those criteria are respected and implemented at your institution and reviewed regularly. Of course, CANIE is there to support you with that. You can contact us to help you and guide you how to implement the processes around that, but it's also, yeah, something that has to be guided and led by your institution. And if you want to add anything, Margarita.
I just want to say there's been just one case where we got like 70 out of 70 like items signed, and in that case we just wrote back saying, that's a big commitment. Are you sure you're like doing this seriously? Because we want to be serious about it. We don't want this to be like rushing like activity. But we again, we're not gonna like audit anything. But like that was the only kind of suspicious one we had, and then review it again and send it again, like with fewer commitments. So we appreciate that. So yeah, that's the only case I remember. Oh, great.
Okay. And if anyone else have questions, you can raise your hand, or of course you can write down your answers in the chat, or your questions in the chat if you're more comfortable. Um, we still have a few minutes to ask a few questions to our two CANIE representatives. Maybe in the meantime, we could talk a little bit about the advocacy that CANIE does for the green policy in Europe. Can you let us know a little bit about how you do that aspect of the work?
Philippa, do you want to take this? Maybe even mention what happened very recently with the request of like being part of the steering committee.
Yeah, it's very exciting actually that it was yesterday. One of our members was invited to be a part of the steering committee for the future of the Erasmus Plus program, because, as Margarita mentioned at the beginning of the meeting, CANIE is an organization that has kind of occupied a space that was missing from our sector. We've now become kind of the go-to on those type of issues. So in this case, it was one of our Europe chapter members who is very active when it comes to green Erasmus policy. He's works within the Green Office and the International Office at his institution, and had yeah, been very active in that area, but also through his activity with CANIE. And so what we did, he was invited to be a part of the steering committee about the future of the green Erasmus, or the green aspects within the Erasmus program. And we then surveyed our members, who were able to give their suggestions as to what they think should be, how green policy should look within the Erasmus program. So that's one example of where CANIE can have scope to group together members' ideas and advocate for change within. I think it's interesting to this space particularly that it was the Erasmus Plus program, but there are numerous examples of where CANIE, and then in other contexts as well. It's not just in the European context. There are other examples. I don't know if there's any other examples you want to mention from the more international side of things, Margarita.
Well, certainly the advocacy we're doing with conference organizers. We've been talking to many conference organizers and try to like at least make them think about things. And in a European context, I must say it's easier because like we've been working very closely, for example, with the EAE becoming part of the program. And we have a green booth now. It's been 2 years already. It's going to be like third year in Gothenburg. So there, we are helping them kind of like think about calculating emissions, the travel emissions. So I think we pushed for climate action to be at the center of their conversations instead of like being just a nice to have and becoming a must have. So that is something that in Europe is happening certainly faster because we're trying to do this with NAFTA, for example. And believe me, let's say things are like, okay, I need to be institutional here, but I think things are moving slightly slowly. So there are some contexts that are more absorbent of ideas and advocacy, and there are contexts that are less ready to metabolize and work on it. But this is something we've been doing. And there's a Ida, thank you for the question. How can national agencies support the work of CANIE? Thank you. We love this question, and we love hopefully the full the next steps of like that this question take us to. So I think there is so much we can do together, and I think you are the gateway and the door to like so many institutions. You are at the point of reference for universities too, and the go-to like entity for universities. So we would love to do more, more education about what climate action means for universities. We would love to discuss more what can be done together, because there's so much that can be done. So I would so much appreciate maybe like a separate conversation about, based on, the country, and based on, also our CANIE members in the country, how can we collaborate? So yeah, thanks for the question. I hope we can maybe have like if we can have like a chat about it, we would love to, because there are so many things that can be done. Philippa, I don't know if you want to add something.
Yeah, I think I love this question as well. And what comes to mind when I hear that question as well is, okay, what can national agencies do to support us? And also, what can we do to support you? I think it's really in both directions that collaboration could go in many directions as well. And if we would love to hear from you as national agencies, what you're lacking. CANIE has, as we mentioned, a well-established group of people who've been thinking about this topic and researching this topic even for a long time. There's an academic advisory board that you can turn to with questions about policy making. There are things that we could also offer for you, but yeah, there are lots of different directions it can take. But we'd love to hear from you about what sustainability looks like in your individual national context as well, because we're very aware that it's not the same and it's not a one size fits all concept. That in each national agency you'll have different issues that you'll be grappling with, and don't hesitate to reach out to us and have a chat about that, and we can see what we can work on together.
And there's another comment, Anke. Make accountable in the final reports. It means use of travel and CO2 emissions. We demand this in 2021, especially for KEA2 project. Yeah, there is no option. I just want to say this is a small message with a huge conversation they have. I just want to say we all need to use our sphere of influence as much as possible, because we can make a difference. We can, okay, each of us can, no matter how big or how small, but we can all make a difference. So thanks, first of all, for bringing this up, because it was important in 2021. It's even more important today. So let's find together a way to just maybe make it possible, or if it's not an institutional policy, maybe include it as a something that can be added, or I don't know, let's rewrite the rules together. I'm serious about this. Let's rewrite the rules together, because it's time. So happy to have again another chat about it. With those specific questions, I mean, we can have a 2 hour conversation each of this point, or maybe more. So love that.
Yeah, I think in the European context, of course, the European projects are very important in our context, and this is a request that we have also from our members sometimes, so it's something that we could definitely be working more on together. Yeah.